Rishi Sunak has been claiming for week after dull week in the House of Commons that the migrant figures coming across the channel have been going down, and yet demonstrably they've actually been going up. So the official figures are now in for the first 3 months of this year at 4,644, which, and in fact 338 people crossing the channel yesterday, bringing the figures of the arrivals even higher since the first small boats reached the UK in 2018. And this means that for the first 3 months of this year, there are more people coming to the UK than ever before across the channel. Now, this may be because there are no safe and legal routes to the UK to claim asylum. It may mean that the smugglers are being particularly desperate in the fear that the Rwanda deterrent will stop them doing anything at all. But I don't think it's a deterrent at all. If it were a deterrent, the fact that it's even on the way should be deterring people, but it's not deterring people. If anything, it's encouraging them to come in larger numbers. This is an utter disaster. And I don't understand how the government can hold its head up and say, oh, look, we're actually doing something. The only thing they are doing is increasing the numbers. There's a big difference between identifying a problem and proposing a solution. And what Suella Braverman, what James Cleverly, what Rishi Sunak have done is to confuse that process. Solution, problem. Problem, solution. They're very different. And there may be, even if we were to agree that the problem is the number of migrants coming into the country, I don't agree, by the way, even if we were to agree about that, we may not agree about the solution. And to say, for example, that people who don't agree or don't support the Rwanda option are not supporting the effort to sort out the migration problem, that is nonsensical. It's actually a logical fallacy. But I say I don't agree with the problem itself. The problem itself, I don't think, is the number of migrants coming to our country. The problem itself is twofold. Number one, that our Home Office hasn't done its job and hasn't identified which migrants are valid asylum seekers and which ones are not, which ones are in fact illegal migrants. Instead, it's rather like the Gordian knot. It's just taken a sword to the whole thing and said, anybody who comes here now is an illegal migrant. That's neither just nor is it realistic. It's nonsensical. And it makes a nonsense of our international commitment to help asylum seekers. I think the problem is smuggling and trafficking. And I'm speaking as somebody who I came across trafficking and smuggling at the beginning of the century, and I looked at what was going on in Greece and Turkey. And I heard horrific tales from first hand from people who had been smuggled and trafficked. And those tales have not really changed at all. And indeed, the methods that are used by smugglers have not really changed at all, nor have the pullbacks or pushbacks. There were pushbacks in Greece, they're pullbacks in France. But push or pull, it's still some strange animal that is not really wanted on board, like a sort of push me, pull you, like something out of Dr. Dolittle. It's a fantasy animal, and that's where it should remain, in the imagination. Once we are encircling dangerous small boats and encouraging them to capsize, we are participating in murder. And the people in the boats, a good proportion of them, are victims already. We're making them victims again. That's not right. We should be targeting the people who are profiting from this appalling trade. And that means breaking the system. That means not applying some sort of deterrent, because we're not trying to deter the victims. They are desperate anyway. They will do anything. We have to deter the smugglers, which means we have to take the trade away. We have to make the trade pointless, which means we need to put consular offices in northern France. We need to put them in Turkey, in Libya, in Albania even, wherever the migrants are coming from. In Afghanistan, well, we should have sorted out the Afghan problem originally. Rishi Sunak was in a committee the other day, and he was asked why the greater number of migrants who are coming across the channel are from Afghanistan. He says, well, we've got perfectly good legal and safe routes. No, we haven't. And he knows full well that we haven't. He knows full well that a lot of people are deterred from even leaving Afghanistan. They're prevented, because the legal and safe programs are full to bursting. And even those Afghans who are here on legal and safe programs are kept in limbo in hotels. Now, I was talking to Maya Tusi the other day, and we were talking about what happens when you come to this country, and he said how his mother went through this process and was saying, we have to be very patient because this is the host country and we need to follow their procedures. Absolutely. But when the procedures don't take place because the Home Office is so lazy and indolent, then I'm afraid instead of breeding a generation of grateful migrants who've come here and embraced our culture and our values, we are breeding a festering resentment of people who hated their time in hotel limbo. Those hotels are a misery. I've stayed in some of them. I wouldn't keep my dog in one of those hotels. It was horrible. I don't have a dog. Probably the dog has got lost in the hotel. But I wouldn't. The hotel was horrible. And I was a paying guest. Now, what would it be like if all the few luxuries that were there were stripped out? And I was sharing a room with 2 or 3 other people who I didn't know. An utter misery. And the misery isn't so much the hotel accommodation, that's bad enough, but the loss of agency and the loss of certainty about what I can do next. Because I don't know whether I'm going to be allowed to stay in this country. And I don't know when the decision is going to be made. All I know is when I put my head outside the hotel, I've got people jeering at me. This is not the way to run a country. If we get it right, even the people who go back to their own country or go on to another country will talk favourably about their experience in the UK and will act as ambassadors for our values. That's particularly important when we're thinking about students. But if we get it wrong, and we are monumentally getting it wrong at almost every turn, because we have stopped thinking that this is about our duty and have started to think this is about our control. Our duty is to help the stranger who is in need. That's not just a duty enshrined in Christianity and Judaism and Islam. It's a duty that goes all the way back to ancient Greece. It's enshrined in the principles of Western civilization. And we decry those, and we rebuke those, and we disdain those at our own cost. And there's other people who put in the comments, oh, you don't like your own country. I love my country, but I don't want it to be so riddled with hypocrisy and with contempt for others. I want it to be a country that I can be proud of. When I look around, particularly at the present government, and I see people who are benefiting from the immigration opportunities that were afforded to their parents or their grandparents. And they are the ones who are imposing such strictures, such hatred for people who are in need. I can't turn away and shrug. I have to speak out. And I don't think this is about being a snowflake or being lefty. I don't see myself as lefty, by the way. I think this is about being middle of the road and about being clear that I don't even see this as being a political choice. I see this as being a moral imperative, I'm afraid. Now, there's also the story today coming out that Rishi Sunak is not averse to stepping down, apparently, because he's beginning to realize he's not good at the politics. No, he's not. Rishi Sunak, do you remember, can you go back that far to remember how winsome he appeared as Chancellor of the Exchequer? How much he gave the impression he wanted to help. And now look at him, posturing across the dispatch box and reciting speeches that have been written for him, that quite clearly he's not invested in. He doesn't believe. He doesn't deliver them with any sense of purpose or conviction. It's like watching some sort of puppet. Yes, he's a better puppet than Liz Truss. Yes, he's got hand movements that we can actually recognize. But he's not playing a sort of greater version of himself. He's playing a reduced version of himself. A good politician is advised by people who reinforce the positives and quietly hide the negatives. Rishi Sunak is playing an entirely new character that bears almost no resemblance at all to the character that we saw when he was first Chancellor. And it's a horrible vision. And he cannot be happy playing this part. Think back even to Christmas and to that extraordinary video he put out where he's alone in 10 Downing Street. That's not the same man who stands across the dispatch box from Sir Keir Starmer and fails to answer almost every question. That's a man who's interested and works hard. Not a man who wants to control, but a man who wants to put in the time and get the job done and do the right thing. I think it's somebody who wants to be told what to do, and he's being told what to do by twits. Some of them were in the Home Office. Now I think it's twits standing around in Downing Street trying to work out how to hang on till November. What's the point? What's the point when we know the result? And the question is, does Rishi want to go down with the ship? My hunch is he doesn't, because it's not something he really believes in.